Hello, Jason from Nobula here. Today we're going to be looking at Echo Cinematic. Echo Cinematic is a delay, a reverb, a filter, all stereo with a built-in knob recorder in 12 HP. So, what's it all about? What's all the fuss about? Why put all that in one module? The reason behind it is because it's designed as a dub echo, that is an echo that is rhythmic, is textural in terms of EQ, because dub reggae artists would EQ, or dub reggae producers would EQ the echo through the mixer and ride the controls just to keep the whole echo sound kind of live and in time, and just play it like it was an actual instrument in its own right. And that's really what the Echo Cinematic is about. It's about a effects device that you can kind of play, but also leave to its own devices. It does some of the playing for you, hence the knob recorder, the two built-in LFOs, and the patchable inputs here, and the clockable inputs here. So it's always in time, and you can overpatch anything with your sort of larger rack, external LFOs, or whatever comes to your mind in terms of Eurorack. I don't know. That's part of the fun of Eurorack, isn't it? That I design the stuff, and people go out there and use it their way. But the way it was intended to be used as a module was really simply as a delay with a built-in EQ. So if I bring that EQ in now, you can hear that the feedback is starting to get more EQ, because each time it goes through the delay, it gets EQ'd again, which is why there's a gain control on this feedback, because you don't want necessarily full-blown EQ. It depends on how you're using it, but if you're using it as a delay, you want it to sound kind of tapey, then you just have a tiny bit of EQ on it. And maybe if I switch to the delay LFO, I'll put a little bit of random speed on it, just to give it a bit of wow and flutter. So like cassette EQ now, cassette delay. I'll put it on a bandpass filter with some resonance and a bit more depth. There, it's starting to sound like my old tape player that I had to use recording the top 40 off the radio back in the day when cassettes were the only option. So yeah, that's one way of setting it up. Of course, it's got reverb built in as well. And depending on how you patch it here, the reverb can either be immediate, or it can be hanging off the delay sound itself, or the reverb can itself be going through the filter. That's with the all setting. And with the delay setting, the reverb is on the front end of the unit, so you hear it immediately. And back to the feedback setting, you'll hear the reverb only on the return of the delay. Yeah. So those are the options you've got. You've also got the send controls for the reverb. It says mix, but it's actually a send control. So that's 100% effects. The same with the reverb delay mix. That's just delay. That's just reverb with the original sound coming through, or not. Yeah. The reverb, can go almost infinite. You've got size control here. And then the actual filter itself, you've got 3 filter types, actually 6 filter types, strictly speaking. You've got low pass, high pass, band pass, band reject, or notch. And then you've got your comb filter, which is 4 band pass filters. And then you've got a phaser. On that side. So those are your filter options. Those I was demonstrating to you with the all setting, which means that all the things go through the filter. The original signal, the reverb, and the delay are all filtered. But I'm going to put it back to just the feedback setting, which is really what it was really designed for, to be this dub reggae that gives you these kind of very colourful kind of settings. The LFO I'm now going to put on the filter, because if I don't put LFO on the filter, if I just leave the filter rigid at one frequency, say on a kind of resonant bandpass setting, you'll hear that feedback, because it's a very narrow band. It's really going to start feeding back just through that narrow EQ band, and that's when things can get a bit hairy. So if you introduce a bit of sine wave modulation to the filter, it's kind of like turning this cutoff, sort of like that, which means that your center frequency is always moving, which means it's much harder to build up a singularity that just keeps feeding back on itself. It's always shifting and dodging itself, rather than feeding back the same frequency over and over again. So it's a much more stable sound. Whereas if I take that off, yeah, and it doesn't need much of it, just a tiny bit can just sort of, especially if it's very resonant, it can just sort of, it just spreads it out over time. So that's the kind of default setting that I would use this module at, and then just play around with the timing of the delay. Now the timing of the delay is another thing. It's got to be rhythmic, and the great thing about this is that once you've clocked it or tempoed the delay, then you're going to get a preset sort of quantized delay time every time you turn this. So effectively it's snapping the delay time to the nearest beat, because it knows what your original beat was, and just divides that down into 16th notes and just automatically snaps this to the nearest one. I'm going to bring in some of the sequencer now. And I'm going to tap tempo the sequencer. And what this does, I have to tap it a few times. It doesn't just take 2 taps, it takes 4 taps and averages the time between them. So you've got a good opportunity to really tell it what tempo you really are working at, not just how bad you are at tapping. But even if I do like a 2-second delay, my error's kind of compounded over 2 seconds, but nonetheless, it's still rhythmic. So you can create these really nice rhythmic textures that also have a sort of filtration sound going on. So now we're going to look at the knob recorder, because wouldn't it be nice if we turn this reverb off just to have a little bit of reverb just on every beat or so. I've already got a trigger coming into the reset control here, and what this is going to do is going to synchronize our knob recorder to the beats that I've got going in the background. So let's go into record. Turn it off. So now you can hear the reverb coming in and out. If I take this off, now it's just going to be looping when it gets to the end of the recording. So it will slowly go out of time, which again is quite a nice effect, because it means you get this sort of random pulsation. Okay, so it's starting to go out of sync now. Nice. And now it's back in time. And I can record anything, any knob on here. So if I go into record, and the knob recorder is additional or subtractional to whatever knob setting I've got here. So I can still control it, and I've got the knob recorder adding and subtracting from this value. And there you have it. Echo Cinematic.